this meeting to order, dated March 21st at 7:02 p.m. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attendance and appointment of alternates. Everyone is here, so we are all good. Now we are on to approval of agenda.
I'd like to move and make a couple changes. Sorry. I'd like to move new business to item number 9 to after communications. And then within new business, move item C to before A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passes. All right, any other changes or? All right, make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of minutes, regular meeting February 21st, 2018.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting February 21st, 2018.
Is, okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Special meeting March 6th.
I move that we approve the minutes of the special meeting on March 6th, 2018.
Is there, okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Public participation. Really? We finally have all these people and nobody does anything? All right, on we go. Communication. Anything? Perfect. We're just cranking right along. All right, so now we are on to 9 new business, letter C. Lori? Lori? Oh, there she is.
Way in the back.
And letter C is transit-oriented development and responsible growth grant fund.
So last summer, I applied for the 2017 Responsible Growth and Transit-Oriented Development Grant. And in January, we were awarded $123,800 for that. In addition to that, there is a grant match of $13,700. So of that $13,700, $6,200 will be paid for by in-kind services through commission time and staff time. The rest of it is $7,500, which has to be paid in cash, earmarked for public workshops and printing fees. So I'm here tonight requesting that we could get that funding so we could actually obtain the funds from the grant. If you want, I could quickly go through what the grant will be doing.
Sure.
So, okay, so basically we'll be performing stormwater management analysis for Warehouse Point. So when we have increased development and increased impervious coverage, we'll know what to do with the waters and try to prevent flooding. Develop guidelines for form and architecture for the structures, to come up with new zoning regulations for different uses and increased density for housing, and develop guidelines for complete street criteria, so that's coming up with designs for bicycle paths, pedestrian paths, make it handicapped accessible, bus, auto, all of those transit type uses. And basically overall promote sustainable growth in conjunction with the Winterlocks transit-oriented development, and of course on the other side, casino. So this is the money that I had been asking for from the town for a couple of years now. I actually got a grant for it. So.
Now with the $6,200 that you said in-kind services from staff and commission, can you
So actually what happens is you get a monetary amount of hourly wages or time for a commission member, and we actually have to calculate at how much time everybody spends. So it's actually a task to just keep track of it, but if you know to do it up front, it works. if you wait till the end, then you're
in trouble.
Yeah, big trouble. So what I'll probably do is hand out sheets to every commission member saying, you know, for every hour you've spent on this project, please track it. And then, you know, maybe I'll collect it every quarter or something like that.
Right. And did the Board of Selectmen, did you already sit in front of them and present this?
I did before the grant was submitted, because we had to show that we would be
Able to do it.
willing and able, and I did go to their last meeting, only they felt that they couldn't make a final action until this board made an action to transfer the funds, or appropriate the funds,
Okay.
which is why I'm here tonight.
Well, it was, the transfer signed by Tommy. So do you want a motion now for the transfer, or you want to wait?
Well,
on
no,
that?
we're gonna do it in our transfers. She
Okay.
just came so that we would have all the details when it comes down to there.
Okay.
That would be perfect.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't know. Anybody?
When does it start?
As soon as I get the money. I mean, the money's there, I just have, there's a bunch of forms that have to get signed, there's gotta be a
And you gotta bring a
by
check.
resolution from the Board of Selectmen, and once I get, and I need verification that this money is available. And once I get all that to the state, then we can get going.
And this is coming from the fund balance,
If we approve it that
if we
way.
approve it that way.
Correct. We just let Lori come a little ahead because she needs to
Okay.
scoot on. So, all right, perfect.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Appreciate your time, and I appreciate you letting me come first.
Not a problem.
Same to everybody else, I appreciate it.
All right, so then we're on to new business A, which would be the Board of Education budget presentation. And if anybody would, the budget presentation from the Board of Ed is up here, if anybody would like a copy.
So I'm ready. You guys are ready. Obviously, we're here tonight as the Board of Ed to present to you our budget request. But we wanted to also give you a little information that might help you understand our budget a little bit better and what's behind our request. So, first of all, why do we need a strong school system? I mean, the obvious answer is students, right? Because we need to provide that for our students in order to better our whole population. But there's a number of stakeholders that are invested in how well our schools do, not to mention the community as a whole, and how that affects all of our property values and our ability to bring businesses into town and all of those things. So, some information about the schools themselves. They're not really what we remember from our youth. I mean, for me, and I hear and see a lot of misconceptions that are information that's put out there. That's, I don't want to say the misinformation word, but there is some misinformation out there. So we want to try to make that, clarify some of that and share some of what makes our schools different than they used to be as well. So one of the things we hear about is that we are losing students by the droves. And we have had a decline of about 408 students since in the last 10 years. Not the 900 or so I heard we lost in the last 5, but still, it's a significant number. But Connecticut is one of the top 3 states in the country that is losing population. So it's not surprising that we're going to see people moving away, and that's going to affect our school population as well. Our status is consistent with that trend. East Windsor Public Schools has had an average of about 14 and a half students at magnet schools. So they're not going to magnet schools in droves either. That number's been about constant for the last 5 years. You know, it varies a little bit, it does this, but on average, it's stayed fairly the same. So where do they go? Most of them move, simply move out of town or out of state. But there are those that go to magnet schools, private schools. You'll see there's a vacation option on there. That's primarily, we track it, but it's primarily somebody who came from another country who tells us they're going to go on vacation, an extended vacation back to their home country, but then they just never come back again. So they're logged as a vacation. But you can see where people are headed, and at the bottom you can also see we've had a number of new enrollments over that same time period in these 2 years. We had 114 new enrollments in 16-17 and 165 the year before. So we're also getting a lot of new students as well. So we compare ourselves to different districts. The state does it by DIRG. We also added a few alliance districts since they have similar academic history and other factors that are similar to ours. And we took a couple of the towns from our district reference group to compare against. They're geographically close to us. We hear them talked about a lot when people talk about our schools. So we grabbed those to talk about as well. So this is the student teacher and student administrator ratios. You can see Enfield has about 12.8 students per teacher. We're at 10.6, so our ratio is a little lower. There's others who are lower than us. Administrators, the same. We are somewhere in the middle of the pack, pretty much in all of these numbers, in terms of where we are. So we're not hiring more people than other schools are in general. For pupil expenditure, again, you can see East Hartford is lower, Enfield is lower. They're both much larger school districts. I kind of hypothesized that maybe they're able to get some economy of scale, but I don't know that for sure. I do know that Windsor and Windsor Locks is also spending more than us, and throughout this entire span of years, you'll see that they have been. The graduation rate for these schools. Our stats are here on the left, and they're pretty standard in terms of they're not changing a whole lot each year. They're getting a little bit better. We look at the other districts. East Hartford has got a lower graduation rate than us by about 10%. Windsor Locks is higher by about 6%. And Enfield and Windsor are roughly the same. So when you look at the demographics, and you look at the students with disabilities, those on free and reduced lunch, those are typically, in the English learners, these are the group of kids that tend to cost more to educate. For whatever reason, they tend to need more assistance to get to the same spot as the rest of the students in the school. So from a per pupil expenditure, which is also listed there, you can see that we have the highest rate of students with disabilities. Our free and reduced is also quite high. English learners, not so bad. And you can see the graduation rates there. So I think what's important here is that you can't look at any one statistic as proof of doing things right or doing things wrong. You have to look at the whole picture. And it's not just any one number that tells the story. So in general, we're dealing with a higher percentage of high needs students, and we're doing it with a lower per pupil expenditure cost. If you look at all of the slides together, I pulled a few things together, like Enfield has fewer high needs students, and they're spending less per pupil, and their graduation about matches ours. So good for them. Again, I go back to my hypothesis of some economy of scale for the size of that school, but again, that's my hypothesis. East Hartford has higher needs. They have more high-needs students. And they spend less than us per pupil, but their grad rate is 10% lower. So that tells me that they're maybe not doing something right there, or at least not as good as we are. Windsor Locks has fewer needs, and they spend more than us per pupil. But they also enjoy a higher graduation rate for that, so good for them, you know. But I think the point is you gotta look at everything together to get a true picture of what's going on. So what's happened to us over time? So in the last 6 budget years, the difference between what we've requested and what we've received is about $4.9 million. That's a lot of things in our school. So we've had to make a lot of cuts to stuff, technology, supplies. We have cut and cut, maintenance, all these things. We have continued to cut each year to match the budget. Overall, our number of certified staff has been fairly constant, but that's because we've brought a lot of special education programs into the school, and we've traded the tuition money that we used to send out for teachers that we now have in. And the overall is a savings to the district. So while you see the staff numbers have remained somewhat constant, that's part of the reason, and there has still been a cost savings there. And at the end of the day, we have lost regular ed teachers and supporting staff for all of the budget cuts that we've gone through. So our people are our power. So it's not a surprise that the highest percentage of our budget increase comes from contractual obligations, not only to those people but to other contracts as well, but primarily people. The contractual increases make up 62% of our budget increase. 12% was to the insurance. The 12% insurance increase is 15% of our budget increase. The OPEB number is also significant at 8% of our budget increase. Those 3 things represent 85% of what we're asking for in an increase. We did also reduce our budget based on trends that we saw in fuel, transportation, workman's comp, liability insurance, that kind of stuff. We have precious little revenue, but we do have some, mostly in the form of grants. We are going to be losing some revenue in the next budget year. There were some students that were being tuitioned in who are no longer going to be with us, so we're going to lose that tuition money, and that helps support, in general, you know, it's spread out. Our choice money comes in late sometimes in the last quarter, after the fiscal year ends late. And if that was to happen, we may not get to use that money. It depends on whether we can work something out with the Board of Finance. So we can't really count on that money in our budget until we know we have it. Because by law, we can't go red. So we have to assume we don't have it until we do have it. We've also used all of our carryover money from Title I. We've been able to carry some of that over and use that in subsequent years, but we thoroughly expended that money this year, as well as our Title II money, so we won't have any of that either. The Title II money was used for curriculum. It paid for substitutes so that staff could work on curriculum, and I just want to point out that that curriculum work is really important. We've had to overhaul complete portions of the curriculum in order to maintain the standards that we have to meet. And we also have a NEASC review, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. Did I get that right? Where's Ted?
Yeah, you did.
They're going to be coming back around. They cycle around every 10 years, and they're coming back around to start their review. You may remember that we were in warning 10 years ago and worked hard to get out of that successfully, very quickly. But we certainly don't want to end up back there again, and not having our curriculum in good shape would be one of many red flags that could put us back there. So we don't have many ways to add revenue, but we did what we could. We increased the number of open choice seats that we declare by 48, and that gives us an extra $384,000 in our budget. That's what we'll get from the state for those seats. We've also frozen our budget, and this current year in order to have some funds to use at the end of the year to pre-buy supplies for next year so that we can utilize next year's budget on staff and not have to cut as many positions. All of these things that we've done reduced that original number that we started out with down to 5.82. I think we started at 6.8. 6.8.
No,
Or 8.6. I'm sorry. I'm reversing. Been looking at these for a long time. Another thing that we deal with is the mandates, the unfunded mandates, of course, right? So these are just some of the newer ones, but the team mentor process is required by law. And this year they've decided that they're not going to pay for it anymore. So we're going to have to pay for it. So that's a new cost for us. The chemical hygiene officer is a position that's required by OSHA. That's a collected, it's not a whole person. Somebody who already works for us will provide that extra duty and get an extra stipend to do that. But again, it's just one of the things that we have to pay for. Expulsion programming, they have changed the requirements for students who are expelled so that they have to go to a full-day program. That costs more instead of the kind of tutoring that we were doing. And I'd love to say that we never have to expel anyone, but that's not the case. Professional development for CPR is also, all of our certified staff has to be trained in CPR. That's now a requirement. So we need some supplies in order to do that. And we decided that buying the supplies was more cost effective in doing the training in-house than trying to send everyone out or bring someone in. This will allow us to continue that training because it has to be refreshed. It'll allow us to continue the training and not just have to continue to spend more money to send people out. I think if you did a one year, it might be cheaper to have somebody come in than the $7,000 in supplies. But over time, that will pay out as a savings. What's not in the budget? So these are just a few of the things that we hear talked about a lot, and we talk about a lot. There's obviously a lot more things than this, but one of them is middle school intramural sports. We hear every year, where are middle school sports? They're not there yet, again, because they can't be, because there's not enough money to put them in. The football bus, which has primarily been funded by the Booster, the East Windsor Athletic Association, the parents of the students, and we've thrown in, as we are able, a very small, modest amount. And then summer school for our regular education students at the elementary school and the middle school has been out of our budget for a long time, and we're still not able to get that back in. And it is a need. There are students who need that extra help during the summer. So our final request, 5.71, and that is the request that we're going to ask you for. It reflects some other reductions that we did this year. We took another middle school teaching position out. We lowered printing and postage. We eliminated PD for our special education staff. We couldn't eliminate it for anybody else because it's already gone. Conferences for our, I'm sorry?
Professional development.
Professional development. Sorry, I'm trying not to use all the shorthand, but our conferences for our director of curriculum, we had something left there for her to attend that we thought was necessary, but everybody else's are already gone, and now that one is as well. So we also maintained a modest contingency for any kind of catastrophic loss of technology or a building repair or security. Which is huge. We can't let our security go down. And then we did also include, as we talked to you about, was the technology. We did put that in our budget because we haven't come to any kind of resolution on that, so we wanted to make sure that we'll be able to cover that next year. So some additional considerations that we hope you'll remember talking about is our 1% fund. It would allow us to utilize state payments from places like Hartford for special ed reimbursement, and for McKinney-Vento transportation or other grants that may come in late. The choice grant that comes in late, if it comes in late. Even payments from other areas, like if we have students being tuitioned in, choice students, sometimes those checks run a little late. It'd be nice to know that we can just smooth that out into the beginning of the following year and not worry about exactly where we are with every penny through that. end-of-year process. And it'll provide us with a method to offset unanticipated federally mandated spending. A few years ago, we had that happen. Somebody moved in and at the end of the year when we'd already been on track to expend our budget, and we couldn't absorb all of it at the end of the year, and we ended up having to lay some people off for a short time at the end of the year in order to be able to cover that. So we don't really want to be in that situation again if we don't have to. And then we've talked about technology and the impact of that, but we wanted to put the numbers here for you again, and the reasons that we need it. Questions? We also brought you our fancy table. We're happy to sit with you and look at that. I thought it was that size last year too, but maybe
I
not.
don't know, maybe it's my glasses.
That's it.
So what we did is we just brought all the grant funds into a single line so that we were able to print it a little bit bigger. It's not really missing anything, it just combined all of that into one column.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody, any questions right now, or?
Take the time to look it over.
Yep, perfect.
Sorry. I guess it's my phone. I probably shut it off. But perfect, I missed that. So you're all set?
We are good for now, and I will figure out what day.
Yeah.
And we'll probably do it tonight at the end of the meeting, so I'll let you guys know when we'll be delving into yours, and I'll need it.
If it helps, the April 3rd date would probably work really well for us. If
Okay.
it works really well for you.
Yep, let me write down. Perfect.
You can.
Yeah, I just-
Kathy would like to add one thing.
Just one thing regarding the late payment things, I do want to say that the town has been very cooperative and helpful regarding whenever Hartford has come in late. But there have been times historically where it has been significantly late from them. Last year it came in like a week afterwards, and the town was able to let us use it for the current fiscal year. But there's never a guarantee. I just wanted to say that it's
Right.
not like there isn't the cooperation, there's definitely the cooperation.
Yep.
So,
Right.
Just makes us nervous because
Yeah,
I just have one.
absolutely. Sure, go
Sure.
ahead.
Really nice presentation. It's answered like so many questions that always come up. Kathy's put
okay,
together
good. Thanks. That's what we were trying to do. I'm glad it paid off.
Very, very good.
All right, so next would be the Board of Selectmen presentation.
Yeah, it is, yeah, no, it was really good. It's so cool. To applaud.
I know.
He likes to read the paragraphs.
It's really good. Hi, Jess.
Hey, I don't think my proposal will be quite as elaborate. We have some thoughts. This is the proposal for the next fiscal year. And just to get a sense of the size of things, I did 2% last year's budget here, $37,704,912. And 2% of that's $754,098. Of that, and this is this year's budget, not the next year's budget. And to break that down, about 60% goes to the school system, about 40% goes to the town. And I'm not advocating it, as you'll see. I'm advocating, or we're giving to you, the Board of Finance, a 6.26% increase. But just to get, again, the feel for things, a 2% increase at this budget, $15,233,194 would be $304,664. Now, if you look at the budget that we passed out, it's the budget for the town. You'll see these line items. And one is your insurance and pension, and that's the line number 910-300. That's has increased by $245,372, and that's a lot, really. The whole total increase, total increase is about $1 million, and that's about a quarter of that. Another increase we have is the CIP allocation, is another about $250,000. Another significant portion of that, and let me say the pension, the insurance and pension is something that you really can't cut. A third large portion of that is contingency, and the reason we wanted so much in contingency, there's actually 3 unions that we're starting to negotiate, and right now, we haven't finished their contract, and this contract begins July 1st, 2018, this July, and we haven't increased it, we haven't agreed with it, so we can't budget for what we don't know is the amount. So when we do make those contracts, we're going to need some money in the budget to pay for that, and so that's where the $200,000 comes from. Public Works, we have already negotiated with them, and so that's a contractual increase of $35,000 for Public Works. Town property is another item that we really don't have a lot of control over. You can look at it, maybe you can find some savings there. But the water for fire hydrants went up $31,000. It's another thing you can't really, you have to pay the water company for the fire hydrant. And then again, sanitation went up $24,000. So the other amounts that you'll find in all the departments is about $169,000. So that's just a general breakdown of where the big items are, and you'll see the little items. And finally, what we're asking for is $16,187,461, which is a 6.26% increase. So that's where we are. Any questions?
Actually, yeah. I have a couple, Bob. Actually, a couple of concerns, and the first one is in an email that we all got today. What got brought up, and I haven't been able to watch all your budget workshops. I've been to some and watched some online and that kind of stuff. Did you not review the Board of Selectmen, the revenues at all? Did you not review and approve the revenues?
That's true.
A huge half of the budget.
We didn't review and approve the revenues.
Okay. That's a problem, because that's a huge part of what you guys are supposed to do before you submit it to us.
Okay.
Second of all, you guys voted on expense lines, but you never made a motion to approve and present the entire budget increase and the entire bottom line to us.
That's true.
Okay, so because that made me nervous, I looked in the charter, and page 37 of the charter, section D1B, approval by the Board of Selectmen and submission to the Board of Finance on and before the date set forth by the guidelines of the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen shall approve and submit the town budget. So right now, in reality, you're not submitting an approved budget by your board. I'm not sure how to handle that, because that's a new one for me.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say that, and I just discovered today too, we hadn't made this vote, but what we did, we worked very hard, and we had several budget meetings, and on every department line that's there, we discussed all the line items, and then we made a vote on the total for that department. So what we have done is made a vote on every single department for that department. What we haven't done, we should have done last Thursday when we finished the final department line, we should have had a vote on the total of the totals, and we didn't do that. But that's just a minor thing, and we'll do it as soon as we can. We want to dot the I, just to make it legal, and if anybody wants to oppose that on the board, and I know one person who does, just to for whatever reason he wants to oppose that total up there, that's fine, and we're going to allow him to do that. But because we have actually look in very minute detail at every single line item in there, and we really presented you the budget that we feel the town needs, and we'll certainly come before you and answer to why we feel, well, there's one person that we thought we'd like to employ for half a year at the end of the year. We wanted to save money, but we thought we'd like to employ a economic development professional. And so that's a person that you certainly can consider and decide what you want to do. But the budget that we gave you tonight, you should work with that. You should start working with it, because if on that vote, and I don't think we will, if we ever change the amount for one department, we'll certainly let you know. And really, we're just giving you the budget tonight.
The only thing is, if you approved it before, you wouldn't be able to change anything on it. I think that's the whole purpose of you guys approving it. Once it comes to us, approved, you can't change anything. So if we start working on it now, you could really start changing things, even though we've already started working on it. Do you see what I'm saying? It has to be a point where you guys are done. So I feel like it has to be done like tomorrow. I don't know if you guys can do a special meeting, whatever. But I think before we can start working on it, you guys have to sign off and not be able to touch it anymore.
Okay,
that's, I think, what the whole you know what I'm saying? That's what I think. And I don't know, and I know you're saying one person, but I don't know that if maybe everybody saw the revenues, that they would wholly agree with the revenue numbers, because it's always a changing target. So, do you see what, it just needs to be signed off, I think, before we can even work on it?
Fine.
So, hopefully somehow squeeze a meeting in tomorrow?
Can't do it tomorrow, you have to notice the meeting.
That's right. So how much time do we
might be able to
need?
do it Friday.
Okay, because then we have to put our presentation together for both sides, Board of Ed and town, by Wednesday's public hearing. So if you guys do it Friday, we're trying to get a meeting so that we put our presentation together for Wednesday. So just let me know if that can't be done by Friday.
Okay.
All right? Anything else? You got some? We have the revenue. We have the revenue in our book. The revenue's not, that's only the changes. So the part that you got, this is Bob's presentation, this part is from Gail, this is any changes that were made to the expenses of the original budget that we received, and the original numbers. So, all right, we are good on that, and now we have Lori. So we have 9D, which is new business communication.
You asked to put that on, about invitations and received.
Oh, that was, yeah, okay, we're good on that, because we discussed that last time.
Okay.
Yep, we're good. All right, so it looks like we're gonna go back into order to 8A, town financial reports. Everybody set, catch stuff, or still clicking and finding? Ready, Ms. Gail? Or are you still going? No. Are you still hunting?
So, are there any questions on the tax collectors report? That's just kind of...
No, it's pretty straightforward, and there wasn't really anything that stood out. Revenues,
I have a couple of questions on revenue, and it's just probably a clarification. There's two items in here that we didn't budget for, pilot and municipal stabilization, we received money for. But then there's the elderly tax relief and the peak lot fund, which we received nothing for. So I'm assuming they just kind of reallocated how they were, I mean, it's more money to us the way it's been given
Yeah,
than what was,
the elderly tax relief we are not going to be getting.
okay,
That is an unfunded mandate at this point.
okay.
Pilot, And when we had the original governor's numbers that we based our revenue off of, that was not included.
Okay,
And it was later put back in.
okay.
The municipal stabilization grant, to be honest, I don't know what that is. We've never got it before. We're never supposed to get it again.
Right? Oh, if we need, okay. Figure out what that is.
All right.
Yeah.
And then my last question was on the Connecticut special ed, the $1.9 million. I assume that comes late in the year. I hope it would.
The ECS, are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, we're expecting another payment.
No, ECS is overpaid. It's the one right below it, this
Oh,
Connecticut special
no,
ed.
that one,
The new-
if you remember, when the governor put it out, he was gonna do two separate lines. He was gonna separate ECS
Oh,
and the Connecticut special ed,
okay,
make those two different. They're all coming in as ECS now.
okay, I get you. So that's why it's-
So
ECS
those,
is going
you
in
will
low.
not be getting Connecticut special ed,
Okay, all
the
right.
new grant, like the governor proposed.
So it's all coming in as ECS dollars. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
It's kind of like today's budget.
Yeah, moving target. All right, that clarifies my questions on revenue. And that was good on the expense side.
Anybody else? And
I will say that, we just got a new unemployment claim. So that number, I thought we had kind of maxed out, but it is gonna grow just a little bit more. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be a really big one. I think we can kind of agreed at the end to jockey those numbers at the end. We kind of got there, so we should be able to transfer within the lines for those. That's really the only new development.
And are you comfortable in your legal fees right now? Or we
No,
should work with
we're gonna
them?
need to come up with them. We had a little bit of wiggle room because we had a casino reimbursement.
Mhm.
If you remember, we just transferred enough to cover the existing. So, the legal fees that we have in-house for January have been paid. I haven't seen, we haven't gotten February.
Yeah.
So,
So
we're
next
looking
month.
to continually fund that for the rest of the year.
Anything else? Everybody? Any questions? All right. We're gonna go on to transfer requests. Do you need one?
Yeah, but I just can't seem to find it. Oh, wait a minute, there it is. I just missed a moment. All right, I move we approve transfer request number 15 for the planning department of $7,500 from the fund balance to the transit-oriented development responsible road town portion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I move we approve transfer request number 16 for the police department, an amount of $15,000 from the private duty line to CNR police equipment line.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion still passes.
Does number 15 have to go to public meeting? Did we have to say that?
It's less than.
No, it's less than 20,000, so it doesn't have to go.
And I apologize, who was it, Cindy was the second?
On the second one, yes. I made a move.
Yep.
And there was the new transfer that I just handed you.
Yep.
Okay, no.
Yep.
We do.
Huh? You love them and you know it. Oh, I'm good. Thank you, though. There, you can have that, I'll keep the original.
Sorry. This additional transfer was the, we finally got the last bill on the repair of the fire truck that you had previously approved, authorized up to $7,200, and it did come in about $400 less.
So I'll move, we approve transfer request number 17 for the fire department, amount of $6,822.53 from the fund balance to the repair line of the fire department.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passes. Do that. Yeah, so- Yeah. Perfect. So we are going to go back into order. Number 10A, legal fees. Which we kind of discussed in our reports, just that next month. Gail will have a clearer picture for us to see where we're sitting with the legal fees, especially with the negotiations, especially with the pension negotiations. 10B is the treasurer position, which we have discussed, and we do have executive session today. 10C, casino fund, there is no new information. We're in the same place.
Same place.
Is there supposed to be a town meeting for that?
We're gonna have to set up a town meeting for that.
Okay. But there's not a date yet?
No date.
All right, so before executive session, we are on number 11, board member comments. What did I start at? Huh? Okay. Sarah, any comments? Are you all good? Nothing? Kathy? Good?
I appreciate the presentations from the Selectmen Department and the Board of Ed. And I appreciate the work you guys put into it. We'll do our best to do what we can do for you, I'm sure. Just the problem we have is our charter, and we have a problem passing a budget in this town. So I
And
would
we understand that, but we
recommend
hope that,
you know, anybody that's citizens in this town that knows what the importance of these budgets are, promote it to the citizens we know don't vote, and make this happen. So.
I just don't recall ever having the town side be higher than the Board of Ed high. I just wanted to acknowledge that the increase is actually higher on the town side than on the Board of Ed side, but other than that, nothing else to say. Nothing.
I'm good for tonight.
For tonight? All right, awesome. Again, yes, thank you for both sides for your hard work and your presentation, and we will do the best we can. And if I could have a motion to adjourn into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, can we take a 5-minute break? All right, we're free, restaurant.